And we are rolling here at UCLA on February 4th, and we are about to hear from Vidya, who is going to tell us why we should not allow Syrian refugees to come to the United States.
Mr. Speaker, before I move on to my case proper, which is when I'm going to show you that we should not let the Syrian refugees in, like 10,000 Syrian refugees in, because of the risk, the financial burden, and because we think it's a much better idea to resettle them to countries like closer to Syria, where it'll be easier for them to go home if ever this problem does get solved. But before I do that, I'm going to refute a few things said by side proposition, right? They basically made three arguments. One about their pottery barn rule, which is that if we break it, we have the obligation to help fix it. And though we say that that is true, we believe we can do more good by helping these refugees resettle somewhere closer to home, because actually it costs about 12 times more to resettle them in the States than it does to resettle them somewhere in the Middle Eastern region, right? Second, we believe our efforts would be more better placed solving the actual problem, of which resettlement is only a part of the solution, right? Also, we are under no obligation to allow people in, even if it's with in the refugee situation. Second, he said that the vetting process is okay and it's fine, and in his risk-benefit analysis, he showed us that that we can accept the risk. And what I'm going to show you, by showing you the nature of the risk and why we're not equipped, is that we can't in fact accept this risk, right? Third, he said there's a net benefit for our economy, and we don't think that's true, and I'm going to do some analysis later, but let me just briefly talk about Somalia first, right? And this is relevant examples. Even if we can't take the example of what happened in Europe when the Syrian refugees went there, we can talk about the Somalians. When the Somalian refugees entered the United States, right, they were allowed around 55,000 in total, right? The problem of unemployment has been the largest in the population of Somali Americans in May, right? Here, half the men never worked at all in the 5 years leading up to the recession. The large proportion of them still continue to be on cash assistance and food assistance, right? In fact, over 90% of the refugees from the Middle East have been on food stamps. And this leads into my next argument, which is just the nature of the risk. These refugees who are coming in are not going to be the wealthier, more affluent people from Syria, right? These are going to be people who don't have any prior connection to the West. They're the people who are going to lack the aptitudes and skills that would normally disqualify them from the normal immigration process, because they don't have the skills or just the aptitude to fit in normally into the United States, right? And why is this a problem? Because it leads to a problem of culture. Now, we're not brushing them all by the same stroke, but we're just trying to point out that the nature of the problem lies more in the certain group of people who are going to find it difficult to adjust, right? Because rejecting ISIS or rejecting extremist Islamic propaganda is not the same as accepting liberal democracy. So just because they're not for that doesn't mean that they're going to completely adapt to the culture in the United States, right? They may not necessarily accept the complete equality of women, such as having women as their bosses, or work alongside people from the LGBTQ community. And as we see, for example, in Germany, we see instances of people in the refugee camps attacking Christians or Yazidis or people they perceive as gay. We also see instances of them not allowing wives to enter unsupervised into classes. And what this all proves generally is that even if we do say that, okay, they can come in, or because there might not be anything that links them to factors of risk such as ISIS, right? That doesn't mean that they're going to completely assimilate into this culture, because, like I said, rejecting ISIS is not the same as accepting the liberal democracy that we find here. Now, why is this a problem? Because it makes them more susceptible to radicalization, right? Of the Somali refugees that entered here, 60 of them were arrested for ties to ISIS because they tried to join after they came here, right? We also see 12 instances of people trying to send money abroad to terrorist organizations, and many more being more susceptible to radicalization through social media. And why is this? Because increasingly we observe that radicalization is a second-generation phenomenon in these Middle Eastern refugees. because they're not able to integrate well, and because they don't integrate well, it leads to more alienation, and this makes them more susceptible to radicalization. Now, let me show you why we're not equipped to deal with this risk, right? Because as the State Department says, this risk, the amount that they have to process, is large and disproportionate to the agency's capacity to process like all the applications that we get. Now, let's see, like historically, the way this thing has worked, right? Iraqi refugees, 15 of them were let in mistakenly. Now, they went through a similarly rigorous process as the one we see today. And 15 of them managed to get in, and we had to get them out later, because even the vetting process isn't as airtight as he would like you to believe. Furthermore, the director of the FBI testified before Congress, and he said it can't be done. You can't minimize the risk, even to the extent that he's saying. And here's why, right? We have no assets over there to vet these records against. We have no information from the government, because who are you going to check it against? The Syrian government? You're going to ask like Assad to give you information about these people? We have no one to check with. And here's like the first level of choosing the people who might come here, right? We're matching them against the UN database for refugees. Now here's the thing. These files selected by those UN employees, these employees are hired locally, right? So basically, we're outsourcing the whole first level of our vetting process to staff from another region. And it's not their mission to worry about what happens later in the US once these refugees come here. What they're going to be worried about is helping the people they see in front of them immediately, right? So we see that their efficiency is in question. For example, we see cases, even in the people who go to Europe, right, where we don't necessarily have their marriage documentation. We don't have the men get married and then they have children and stuff, but then they leave to Europe, and no one has proof that they got married. And we see this increasingly in those refugee camps. And why this is important is because it brings their efficiency into question, right? And so what have I proven? What have I proven to you today? I proved to you that historically the vetting of the Iraqis and the Somalian refugees was said to have been better, but that clearly isn't true. The nature of the risk that we're facing isn't something that can be solved, that can necessarily be solved even with the current vetting process. And in the current vetting process, we're not equipped to deal with the scale of the problem. And therefore, because the risk is too large, and because as my partner will no doubt show you later, the financial burden is too much, I urge you to go outside opposition.
Thank you very much. Okay. Come on in. It's Art Linkletter's house party. This is Sam Viola. This is our new member. Okay. Let's give her some feedback or ask some questions or make some comments on her presentation. Yes, please.
I didn't hear a clear distinction between your rebuttal and case proper, as you always put it. So I either missed some signposting or it wasn't.
Yeah, it was that signpost.
Yeah.
I like, because the alternative I think is a good argument. Let's resettle these people closer, it's cheaper, it's better, all of that. But I didn't hear you really talk about that other than in like one or two sentences theoretically.
Yeah, it ties in with my third argument, which is cost. And so I didn't really get to that.
Okay.
But if you want more time, you can focus.
Yeah. Yeah, but we want to hear you say as many arguments as you have and get them to come out. Okay, yeah, but that's a good point. You know, if that's what you plan to argue and bring forth. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
Name.
I'm Jared.
Hi, Jared.
How's it going?
Good.
Your first point of refutation, you said we agree with the Pottery Barn point, but then at the end of that point of refutation, you said we're under no obligation.
No, we may agree with the principle that we should have a hand in solving the problem, and then I said this isn't necessarily the best way to solve the problem.
But if the principle of the Pottery Barn argument is that if we break it, we should fix it, then how is it not directly contradictory to say that we are under no obligation? Because that's saying if we break it, we don't have an obligation to fix it. But yet at the same time, we agree with the principle.
No, we don't have an obligation to let people in.
Mm-hmm. That's
and
not
I said
how
that,
she's fixing.
Yeah, so I said we have an obligation to help solve the actual problem, of which resettling is but a part, and we don't actually have an obligation to let people in here.
Okay. But to you, that was a little confusing.
Well, I mean,
right?
maybe I would like to see more on like why resettling is good, because I really got 2 points. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not seeing how that's a better option than letting people in.
Right.
What was your second rebuttal? I might have missed it, but.
Oh, Somalia, like the net benefit for our economy, it's not true.
No, it was, you said something about the vetting process, right? 'Cause you
Yeah.
said like one line and then.
Yeah, I said I'm going to show you later in
Oh,
this.
okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Why?
Because we don't have the assets there. Who are you
No, I
comparing?
mean, why not just do the rebuttal? Like, just rebut in the point itself. Like.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's like essentially argument.
It's a
Yeah,
minute,
this is an
yeah.
argument more than just a rebuttal, right?
Yeah.
So, when you said this is more good to settle them closer to Syria, like I would wonder like where you would do it and how you would do it. Because if suppose you say settle them close to Syria, Saudi Arabia says no, we won't take them. What is the U.S. going to do after that point? You know,
No.
like how do you
But-
settle them close to home if you don't own the land there? You can't dictate other countries' decisions there.
No, like put pressure on them, I guess. But in principle, this isn't.
And it's possible. I mean,
Yeah, and
we've
it
done
is
that
possible.
already.
Jordan, I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, that's an argument on your side, actually, because Jordan and who else is taking?
Turkey.
Yeah,
Turkey and
they've
Jordan.
already taken quite a few.
Too many,
We
yeah.
should probably.
Too
take
many.
Actually, yeah, that goes against the whole argument. That they can more than they can handle. So.
But
Yeah.
this
No.
idea of absolute sovereignty doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You're
So you
living in a
can't-
fantasy world if you think the US can't
No, they can't
influence
influence it,
outcomes.
but they're not. Most of the countries in that region aren't in a decent capacity. They're screwed up on their own. So how is sending them there good?
That's not
3 or
true.
4.
Which is not screwed up completely. Like
Saudi Arabia is not.
UAE.
Saudi Arabia won't
UAE
take it.
isn't.
US
Iran
is.
isn't.
And
Iran
Saudi
is
Arabia
coming
can
up
handle
sanctions.
it.
Okay, one at a time, please. One at a time.
Saudi Arabia won't take Syrian refugees. They've explicitly said it.
Sure. The other countries in this region.
Okay.
Kuwait is
Can we hear from some other people? Austin,
So my
Ian, yeah, go ahead.
I know they're fair. Your fair reputations. I thought you need to be a bit careful with your word choice. Like one of the things you said was that they don't have the aptitude to reassimilate into the U.S.
Yeah,
culture.
yeah.
So I mean, it's just little things like that that are gonna make it seem like you're Islamophobes.
Yeah.
So I feel like we just need to be a little bit more careful with, especially that point of what. That's I think the hardest point to argue is how they're not going to be able to integrate into U.S. culture. So I think that one you're kind of like prone to run into those quagmires, but like.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think we want to be real careful in saying, you know, they're sub-intellectual or they're subhumans
No,
and
that
they're
wasn't what I meant. I
incapable
meant
of
in terms of-
assimilating
I meant-
ever.
Yeah, no, I meant in terms of like language skills or things like that.
Yeah. Anything else? No. Okay, Ian, do you want to make any comments? Yeah.
Actually, I was going to say everyone's critiques are actually pretty valid. I agree with what the majority of what Bill said. We can go over some stuff when we see your flow later on, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just go around. What's your comment? Were you persuaded by her rebuttal? Were you able to follow her flow, or was it kind of confusing?
I think it was a good speech, but I wish there would be more impact. You saying the impact of this is da. And for the UN Refugee Network, it seems like you're saying that they're being corrupt. Like the argument I'm kind of getting that you're trying to say that since it goes to the UN, they have the interest of the people first. But then, can you show me an instance where they have corruption? Can you show me when they put their interest first in a corrupt way? Have they been bought?
I mean, it's not corruption. It's more like they can only make judgments based on what they see there. And their primary aim isn't to worry about what happens to countries that these refugees go into. Their main aim is to help them. And so you don't need to say that they're evil or whatever, or that they're like intentionally manipulative. You just have to show that it's not effective.
I think she was saying they're just trying to get the people out of their face and process them as fast as they can. Yes, sir.
Yeah. My name is Alfonso. My question was...
Hi,
So
Alfonso.
in the beginning, you mentioned financial burden, and you briefly went over it, just questioning when you said that most Muslims are still in state support. I guess if you maybe go more in depth in how that affects our economy as a wide picture. In addition to that, I also want to, under your risk, one of the things you mentioned was like they're more susceptible to radicalization, and they also kind of like don't adjust to like liberalized Western culture. I guess you could use examples from like Europe and the current situations that are going, kind of just by your points there.
Okay. Those are good points, Alfonso.
So with the financial thing, actually, like I have it on as my third argument, but I would make presumably someone else covered that because as
Yeah.
part of this.
I'd like to hear from Viola. What was your first reaction? What did you think as you heard this?
I'm not sure about the structure of it's supposed to be, but you gave the structure in the beginning about how you were going to refute those points, but then you did that, and then I feel for the part you did afterwards, you could have given a structure again, because
Yes.
I felt that would have helped me to follow you.
That's a great point. Yeah, I was going to say that in just a moment, but yeah, make it your preview was good. She told us what she was going to do, and then do your refutation, and then your now some new matter, and make it clear that that's coming at the bottom, and make it a little more structured. What do you say?
The whole
Name?
Varun again.
Hi, Varun.
So I get where you're going with the whole culture argument, but I feel like it's fundamentally incorrect to hold them to a standard where you expect them to have, because I feel like you're misrepresenting the idea of displacement, right? When you suggest that they need necessary info, necessary documents and whatnot, right? They're not going to have that being in the state in which they are, right? The fact that they have to get into refugee camps, the fact that their lives have been uprooted. You go on to say they have no wealth, no aptitude, no skills. You know, I mean, all of that is bound to be the case when you're in a country where it's like war-torn, right? I think you can't hold them to a standard whereby that becomes the main criteria for judging them.
Why not?
Because of the fact that you need to take into account the situation in which they're in.
But as America, can't we have standards for who we take?
I think that the standard is already so low with people in the country. Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, okay? I don't...
Okay. But
that's a jokey answer, but okay, yeah.
No, but I think she was only trying to refute his economics argument.
It was under her risk point.
No, it was a refutation to her.
No,
to
it was
economics.
under-
It was under
No.
both.
Yeah.
Was
It's
that
like
a
financial burden.
Yeah.
No, because he said they'll be entrepreneurial, they'll contribute to the economy,
Yeah, no.
and she's saying, well, they won't have any skills and they can't necessarily...
What I meant was, okay, so with the skills thing, it's that the people who can get out on their own would have already gotten out. So these people who are coming as refugees are probably going to be from like a lower socioeconomic background, and this means that they don't really have the, like, they're probably going to be more alienated because they can fit in a lot less.
See you later, Jared.
Because like language problems and just general.
Okay. One just real quick comment on that, just for you to cycle in. You read the studies and stuff on the economic impact of immigrants, and they go two ways.
Yeah.
There's none.
I wouldn't
There's
put immigrants in the same category
as the Somalians.
Professor, what do you think would be a fair standard to hold
refugees?
Yeah, because I'm pretty I have no idea.
Safety and assimilation.
Okay.
I don't think so.
I don't think it's... Okay, wait, but... The thing...
You can't
What is it?
expect
Okay,
them to
first of all,
assimilate.
what is assimilation? Okay, so first of all, refugees don't have to go through assimilation process.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to, like, that's all, because the point of a refugee says, I think this is like my big thing, is philosophically, Joe, your definition was wrong of what a refugee is. Like, a refugee isn't for permanent residence. The whole point of a refugee is that you're just there until your country stabilizes and you go back.
Yeah.
I mean, oftentimes that's not what happens. That's the point of it.
Yeah,
so that's why they
that's
don't
right.
have to do cultural training. And then, so the thing is, if we're going to make all of these refugees do cultural training, right? It's not like the citizenship process where they go to classes for months, where they learn like language, they learn this, whatever. I mean, they need to do this in a matter of like weeks to a month max, right? In the process where they get the interview, they do the medical checks, and then they even go to that step. So at that point, are we going to give all of these people cultural education training? And then at that point, is it going to be effective? Like, how hard is it for somebody who supports ISIS to like learn the Pledge of Allegiance, to like learn American colloquialisms, and then like go away? I don't know exactly know what's in.
I don't know. We're assuming rational actors. I mean, the
So I'm
sky.
saying, does cultural assimilation even matter?
Yeah.
I don't
For
think it
refugees.
does.
I don't know.
In terms of safety, not in terms of like their well-being in the country. Obviously, you can make that.
One
argument.
thing that
But-
this Homeland Security guy testified before Congress on Wednesday said was that their CIA informants have said that ISIS is using Syrian refugees as sleeper cells.
Right, but,
So-
but that's not cultural assimilation. It's not like
No, I
making
know.
them forget. I mean, we can do like
But
internment
it's,
camp.
there's a safety
You
issue.
can do re-education camps.
Right.
That'll be a different story. But like, culture education doesn't get rid of old ideals. Just
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
But like Joe's, like I think he said this, but if they really wanted to, they could just come with like student visas. And
Yeah,
That's right.
Visas.
That's right. We're assuming a rational after and all
in terms of student visa,
Okay.
you get student visa.
Well, I want to go around the room first, and then yes. Sir?
Student, tourist, whatever.
Okay.
One quick.
But even getting visas isn't that easy.
It is. If you
It is.
if you can claim that you're a European citizen,
Yeah, but
it's guaranteed.
Turkish
right?
passport,
How many lower
incredibly
class
easy to get a
Syrian
Turkish
refugees can
passport.
claim they're European
No,
citizens?
incredibly
No, no,
easy.
no.
No, Turkish passport.
We're talking
Incredibly
about-
easy to get a fake one.
Yeah, that's
Incredibly easy to get a fake Turkish
Make a
passport.
number.
Okay, so in the primary argument, like when I was following, I was like, you raised a lot of points, but I think you can go into depth with some of them. Like, I was like, okay, that makes sense. I would like more, I would like more explanation of that. And also with the I think the Somalian refugees like didn't seem like convincing to me. A, because they're only 55,000 compared to the Syrian refugees, which is a really small number game. B, and secondly, also when you give the example that 60 of those Somalian refugees go up and had connections to terrorism, that's like 0.1%. That's basically
That's true.
speculation at
But
that point.
So what we're saying,
So you weren't persuaded by the Somali.
Yeah, I was
I feel like that's the fear even with Syrian refugees, right? That was
no,
the
Syrian refugees people they're basically going to start sleeper cells and ISIS coming in from the United States.
Because
That's
I mean,
bigger.
given that his argument was that it's really tiny and we accept this sort of risk every like all the time. Like my argument was that we've seen this before, and it's not like it doesn't happen, and it does happen. And 60 of them is 60 more than they should have been.
Well, but that argument, I think he wins because the risk is 0.1%, and if he can quantify the benefits,
but that's not true because
greater than
the argument that you'd make though is that now here's look at that. That was Somalian refugees back then, right? What year was it? And what Somali refugees came out like late 90s?
Yeah.
Late 90s?
No.
Late 90s, right? When was our Somali refugees?
Late
I'm
90s.
sure.
Late 90s, right? Okay. So that was a different world. Now you look in today in the United States. In first of all, the Middle East, anti-US sentiment is like measurable, right? Okay. So take that into account. When in addition to this, Somali refugees have like minimal ties to like Middle Eastern terrorist organizations. Now they have stronger ones, but they're still like not that strong. Now you're talking about Syrians, first of all, who have a lot of cultural similarities to ISIS, in that first of all they're Sunni Muslims most of the time, and that same thing, they've been in the same area. They don't necessarily support ISIS, but their ideals align. And the issue isn't that they're going to already have the terrorist affiliations, but that when they come here, if they are shunned by American Islamophobes, then they're more likely to be able to be converted. Because I mean, as the status quo, like the largest source of ISIS recruiters, like Minnesota.
Yeah.
So obviously ISIS can still recruit people to the U.S. Now imagine how much easier that's going to be if they're from the same region, if they maybe have like 6 degrees of separation connections to ISIS, right? And then in addition to that, they're already scorned from the country. I think that's the argument why you're extrapolating. If it could happen with those people, it's way, way more likely to happen with the...
Okay, and as a country, is it wise to continue with this policy?
I don't know if it's
Joe,
strong,
real
but I
quick,
think
I want to get around the
analogy.
room. So Joe, real quick, a big comment for her overall arching. Were you persuaded? What's one big thing she could do better?
Maybe more of some sort of, not like theatrical introduction, but some sort of thesis statement at the beginning rather than just like, I'm going to do reputation and then get to case.
Yeah.
Better signposting what everyone said. And like, I really want to hear sort of develop resettle them elsewhere argument, because if you win that argument, then I think it sort of takes out all the arguments that I made.
Yeah. So that argument basically is like refuting your idea that it's a good thing for the United States economy. And so it goes into like how more than 90% of the refugees from the Middle East are on food stamps, 68% are on cash assistance, and resettlement here is like 12 times as costly as resettling them somewhere closer to home. So we can help, instead of like 10,000, we can help like 120,000. Also, where they tend to be resettled, like it's not the places that are advocating for Syrian refugees to come in, like New Jersey and stuff, right? They end up in places like Idaho and places in Pennsylvania, where there's already like a low cost of living and like high unemployment, the schools are already overwhelmed. And basically like the idea that vetting Iraqi and the Somalian refugees was supposedly better, but it wasn't. So if you send them somewhere near there, like countries like Saudi Arabia, right? It's not like they can't deal with the sudden influx of people because every year people go there to visit Mecca and stuff like that. So it's not, they're equipped.
Let me second just one thing that Joe said, that he started with a very impressive introduction. Send me, you're tired, you're poor, you're huddled masses, yearning to breathe free. This is our, intellectual heritage and tradition, that we are a place of refuge for the world. And that's what his stand, that's his position. And he's saying you need to have some counterbalancing opening that equally is going to say, well, that's all well and good, but not when, the first important thing that the foreign policy should do and a country should do is make its citizens safe, or some sort of, introduction like that will counterbalance what he said, instead of just going into your previous, see? Yeah. Sam, did you get enough of this to say anything?
I was just going to respond to what Austin said, but we've moved on, so that's fine.
Okay, yes, Mr. Piano Player.
How do you know I play the piano?
I'm psychic.
Most of the criticisms I have already come up already.
Okay, good. Do you have some overarching thing that would help her, or didn't make sense to you or something?
Yeah, mine are largely pretty consistent with most of the ones we've heard. Namely, if you're going to accept the Pottery Barn rule, it's, I would just want a more specific case on what the counterplan is. What other countries should accept those Syrian refugees? How are we going to make that sort of thing happen? And yeah, especially if the Pottery Barn rule is coming into effect and you're accepting that premise.
Should we do a counterplan?
No, well, we're going to talk about what we should do. Yeah.
Well, I did want to ask what counterplan do, but also I think my argument to the Pottery Barn was if we actually take it at face value, right, which you want us to, like you break it, no, it's true, right? If you just say you break, you buy it, isn't that just like advocating for colonialism?
No.
That's you break, you buy it. It's like you buy the country. And then fix the debt.
The problem is that we started is that we've essentially ruined the lives of millions, or contributed to ruining the lives of millions.
And what do you think we should do about it?
Is help them repair their lives.
So what you're saying, not the Pottery Barn rule, but you break it, you fix it.
It's not about buying, it's about compensation. It's a minimum.
Yeah.
Well, no, because then we said, well, shouldn't we help them fix it instead? And you say, no, it's not you break it, you fix it, it's you break it, you buy it.
So we buy their lives. So we can buy their lives. So essentially, it's like, I don't care if they come here and they're unemployed and they're hungry and they don't have skills to work. Look, we owe them something. If they're on the welfare system, that's fine. That's our moral obligation to pay for that.
Yeah, and some people in the audience will believe that too.
Why is it Pottery Barn?
Pratik is next. Yes.
For that, I just like I said, make the rebuttal a bit more clear, because it's just like one line and then you're not giving lights to why that's the case, like why his arguments are necessarily bad. By just saying that won't work or that's not the case, it's not an effective rebuttal. And secondly, I think when you said that when the UN, like the US has outsourced the first part of the vetting process and to the people in the local areas, I think that's in a way, I don't know if this makes sense, but it's like Eurocentric again when you say that, okay, we shouldn't trust those people because they suck. And they're not able to because that's what you imply, it's done by them. That's why
which is bad because their priority isn't U.S. interest. Their priority is helping people or getting the Syrian refugees out of there.
Why is that a bad priority?
Yeah.
Not for the U.S.
So why exactly?
Because
by them not collecting enough information, it's not like the U.S. is going to be like, okay, now we won't collect the remaining information as well. We will still go through our process. We just be like, okay, we are taking their word. We get these documentation. Let's see if anything's missing. We collect those as well.
We're evaluating risk by how well the vetting process works, and the vetting process, like all those layers of it, only work if the first one does, and the first one.
No. They're more or less independent of each other.
In the sense that you need records to vet them against, right? Like you have your thing, and you need to vet it against something.
Each step is not necessarily a vetting sort of dynamic.
What I mean is most of the information we get is from that first.
No. It's all from U.S. data. We have tons of counter-terrorist data.
What are you talking about?
For the vetting process.
Yeah, I think Vidya, the best you can say is that there's a flaw in the beginning step of the process.
Hey, hold on a second. Does anyone understand actually where we're getting this data from? Does anyone at all understand that?
I figured it's our phone records.
It's mostly SIGINT. It's what's called signals intelligence. Basically, we stick them in camps, or we don't stick them in camps, but they're in camps over there. We monitor the ever-living shit out of them, then we take that data and we go like, oh, you're probably a terrorist, oh, you're not a terrorist, and then that's it. So as long as they don't say anything terrorist related while they're in those camps, they're fine. That's our vetting process, and it's not like the CIA has a giant data pool on every single individual over there, because they don't. A lot of them didn't have computers or cell phones while they were over there.
Yeah.
We do electronic scanning. America is like 80% signals intelligence, and that's about it. All right, like that's what we do. We monitor digital stuff, and a country that doesn't have a lot of digital stuff doesn't have a lot of digital records. So again, it's all signals intelligence from those camps primarily. That is our screening process. Is while they're stuck over there for 18 months or 10 months or whatever the hell, we monitor them, and then we decide, okay, you should probably come over here because you're not going to kill us. So
that's at best an inadequacy in the vetting process. Yeah. Okay, your turn, real quick, and then Madeline.
Sure. I like your idea of a simulation not entirely possible and how second generation eliminations taking place. So what he says may not necessarily be true in terms of the economy and risk. That said, the Somalian example, and I'm stealing Pratik's idea actually, this is not mine, but you cited the example of Maine in particular, the state of Maine. Were all 55,000 Somalian refugees settled?
No, but it's where the second largest population, the largest is, I think, in Minnesota.
And what were the statistics there?
Similar.
In that case, they can probably hold.
It's just representative.
Okay. Yes, please.
Yeah, I agree with most people. Like, if you did a narrative like Joe's, that would be more helpful. And also, if you got more into your, well, if you're doing it around like the counter plan and the contentions, instead of like you took a lot of time with rebuttal, which is good, but I guess just like manage your time better. But I thought it was a nice speech.
Okay, what's your thoughts?
I mean, I don't know much about this.
Name?
Manuel.
Hi, Manuel. How you doing?
Very well.
Good.
And but like I do know that the refugee camps in surrounding countries are already like overcrowded, and most of the people are living in very bad conditions. And you mentioned that this refugee thing is temporary, but like it's not really. It is temporary, but it's not like in a month they'll be back in their homes because they have no homes anymore. Their houses are destroyed. Their hospitals are destroyed. Their farms are destroyed. I mean, for these refugees to get back, it's going to take years. It's not a matter of months. So like the surrounding countries argument, it's a bit weak, I think, because they're already overcrowded and there's people who, I mean, people there are like really like starving a lot because they just, I mean, the situation really is desperate there. So I think the US taking refugees is important now. I don't know if that's like a valid argument. And then, go ahead.
Yeah, it's only actually 2 or 3 countries that are overwhelmed. And like in terms of overwhelmed, like they're taking a lot relative to their population sizes. But there are countries like UAE and Saudi Arabia that have taken 0.
Yeah, but he's saying they won't, and he wasn't persuaded that you had a real persuasive answer that you have a place to get other people to buy into taking them.
Well, no, I think you could actually stick with your plan, right? Because don't even look at any countries like Jordan. Like you're completely right. They're overcrowded, they're overrun. That's more like Germany, where it's already a pretty high like population. So we have Germany, France, whereas like
Sweden.
Well, Sweden's not that high population density, but like Germany and France are pretty high. Think of like Saudi Arabia.
But the thing is, if they were going to take refugees, they would have already done so.
No, right, no. I'm not saying that they're willing to. I'm just saying, like, are we the best actor?
Also, yeah, but Saudi Arabia weren't the ones that caused the problem in the beginning. It was us.
Well, I mean, Saudi Arabia literally funded ISIS. Yeah, Saudi Arabia is probably worse, and they're also all Sunni Muslims. Pretty much in Saudi Arabia.
But it's a little different though. They're Wahhabists over there, which is a problem.
Yeah, but what are you saying? That because it is their duty to take them on and they don't, then we should do the same thing?
We're saying it would
I'm
be
saying
better
it's like,
for them
well,
to
we're not the best actors, not our problem. Put on that.
No,
that seems kind of callous to you, right?
I don't know. I mean,
So you buy into the thing we have a moral responsibility because we screwed the place up,
on
right?
the highway right now, there's a guy who's
to an extent.
juice boxes. I mean, give him moral responsibility to go out there right this second and help them out though.
Sorry,
there's right now, like on the highway, there's a guy begging for juice boxes and change on the 405. Do we have a moral responsibility to go there and have give him shelter right now too though? I think that the problem that a lot of us have not been willing to look at is where the bright line is, right? Who are we willing to help? Who are we not willing to help? And what what makes that decision making calculus for us, right? Why are we able to make that choice, and what is that definitive?
Also, given that we can have 12 times as many people if we resettle them there rather than here.
Okay.
Well, you used to pay for the refugees.
Yeah, we can, yeah.
Just pay them. That'll be cheaper there if you pay them there. Then
Also, another thing I didn't mention, like with the vetting process, is that you can't really distinguish between like refugees, like economic migrants. Nobody is able to make that distinction anymore. Because if you look at the ratios of men to women and children, it's like 74% are men, which, yeah.
That's a disputed actually. Depends
I mean,
on who you're asking.
Yeah, that's true. But in that sense, like if you don't really know, then my point is that we don't know as much as side proposition is saying. So it's not necessarily an informed risk we're making. So you can't judge.
Yeah, final question. I want to close this now, but our final question I think you got some good feedback tonight, and I'd like to go over the tape with you and have you redo the speech a few times. But I think about the standard for how an audience is supposed to decide whether the policy the affirmative is proposing is better than the one that the status quo is proposing of taking 10,800 a year or more. And what's the criterion? Joe said the weighing mechanism is net benefits, cost benefit analysis, and is that the way you want to go, or do you want to?
That's fine, because I can show like if we're helping more people over there, then it's in their best interest. Also, if
I'm not so sure.
I guess I'm skeptical. I actually like the idea also of the counterplan where we should help them instead. Like I told you the thing about like where like costs $100 US to get like a pound of grain.
Yeah.
So you can do a lot of good there. But do you guys buy that? I guess on the masses? Because I know there's also the big thing of like, well, yeah, but how good is like aid? Especially like, is our aid actually going to be? Especially in Syria, where there's like not even like a shadow government. Really, it's just like everything's destructive.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know if you guys would buy that. I guess, but I personally like that argument.
Of like food aid and stuff?
Well, yeah, just like general aid.
I mean, it barely works in like African countries.
Yeah, it sounds like basically like, we don't care enough to take you in, but we care slightly enough to give you food so that we don't look bad.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah. I wouldn't buy that.
Yeah, I don't think that's like that bad. Like, it's like why
is that so bad?
It's like why don't you take a homeless person to your house? Like,
hey!
Why keep that
Standing ovation! Yay! Changes.
They chose to leave.
We burned their house down.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, okay.
We just like allowed the person who burned the house down to like live.
What?
Like the person who burned their house down might have known us.
We gave them the kerosene. Let's agree on that.
Not really.
Let's agree on that.
Maybe they bought the kerosene from
Well,
us.
let's put it this way. To be perfectly honest, though, like right now, right this second, right, like talking about the bright line for like who we care about and all that kind of stuff. If your dormitory building burned down right this second, right, and you're sitting in class, I'm not sitting here saying you should come back to my place. I'm going to go first. Like, is there anywhere local you can stay? All right, do you have some friends nearby that you can stay with? Do you have some parents nearby? Something like that. I'll take you in if I absolutely freaking have to, but I really don't want you in my home right now. All right. So I mean, like, there's that bright line of we're willing to do this, but it's not something that we actually want to do. Let's look for other alternatives first. And I think that's what they're kind of talking about is, let's look, is there anywhere nearby local to you that's willing to take you in? Have you not pissed off everyone in the region that someone's willing to put up with you for a few years? Okay. That's, I think, what we're kind of looking at. And I think that there's somewhat of a realistic perspective there, right? I don't think that we have to look at someone with animosity for not welcoming someone into their home. I think that like we have to be able to at least cross that amount of ground and recognize there's something to both sides of this.
Okay, fine. I said this was going to be the final comment, but I'll just say you need to have a coordination too with Austin about what your new matter will be that will be new compared to what is going to be in his opening government case, and so it'll be something additional. Okay. All right, let's give Vidya a nice round of applause. Yeah, thank you, Vidya. We have time, to put people together for.
Do you want to do that, or do you want to do? Or should we do some drills maybe today?
Yeah, the drills. The what? The Brandeis thing, or what?
Yeah, maybe we should get some. We should get some return people coming up.
Yeah.
So instead of just doing the mentor mentees, we'll get some return.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe we should take care of that before.
I wanted you to. What?
I can go upstairs. I was supposed to take people upstairs earlier today, so I left my wife up there. I'm gonna go.
Okay, let's do okay, so who has the answers? James.
Give it to James, give it to Sam to speak.
How about Viola, do you want to speak today?
I'd rather listen.
Okay, no problem. Sam. They spoke last night. What? You have? Yeah. Okay. You want to do the first round?
I don't know. Let's see what they're gonna put the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
5 years.
Okay.
How do we get, like for example, Germany, which has taken some of the refugees? Like, what's the big problem that happened in Germany now?
Okay, honestly, yeah, it's the rates. Also, there are people there who are unemployed and need benefits, right? And when you have other people getting benefits, major citizens don't always have a problem. Also, because if you don't assimilate, then the issue is you've got ghettoized kind of regions where people stay together. And
I finished one.
it's also they are able to everybody is really Islamophobic and resentful.
I think so. I think it might be the earlier one.
Especially the second generation. I mean, you can imagine like some teenage adults in this world, they don't belong, whatever. Parents their children on social media by someone who's just like, this is really who we are.
We should this one.
I think it's a problem. We need like more arguments on it.
I think
Like that was my point. Like where they are, like so people are willing to be all,
Especially if you have
like yes,
not bad, but just like
places where it's like where they can't, where the like nets are, the security nets are already. So you've got people who are employed and help benefits actually in campuses. It's just going to be
the first part in this debate is not like what we usually want to get here. It's like like it's clear that taking them on. It's not like
we need more on it actually has benefits. So I said it
I just are responsible. Not even the responsibility. They have like responsibility towards a collective of people who are suffering very much.
On the other hand, there are people on the also not that's where you're I see that and if you kind of you got the 10,000
I'm not saying we should be.
I wanted to be good. I am so proud of I was the one Joe was talking about basic question. I had 6 points in my head for this.
2 p.m.
They were yes,
but you don't need more than
I told you.
We get to sit here and feel the other side.
You bet by
like this side of the debate.
That's not true. I like your argument about rejection of extremism is not acceptance of.
Oh yeah.
That's very important.
Well done.
You know something you can say that I can't refute? I don't know if I should tell you. I'm going to tell you anyway because I think that your side should win on principle. It's like, kids, like autistic kids with like disabilities in Syrian camps, they're not going to get the kind of care they need even if we resettle them somewhere near. You know what I mean? There is a unique advantage to having these kids in first world countries.
But then that number is so small that it would fall under your model too.
What do you mean?
Like we're the best actor that can provide for them.
There's unique advantage to having this section of society end up, or at least few of them end up.
Yeah, but we win, but then it means, okay, but that's an increasing my advantage on the society.
Well, if they're high functioning, if they're low functioning, then they cost much.
Yeah, that's exactly. But you know what I mean? Like,
take the genius and take the technical thing.
Yeah. So basically, within the framework of the people who are accepting, we can accept like minorities or people who are worse off situations. They end up in the refugee camps. Like if you have Yazidi refugees, right, whom like everybody discriminates against them, they're in a worse position. So are kids with like who need medical attention and they need it long term.
I like that argument. It makes me feel good inside.
Ended up there.
Yeah, but
I think it's like to make sure that
you don't know what you see.
There's a lot of like
you can already learn up show like maybe one proof of identity and they'll have to make it.
I just think like I hear so much about myself, inside of my head all the time, this as though this thing with this friend, this anyway, like this is going on.
But here's the thing, that's the requirement for legislation that they want to this is made for them to be like perfect angels that they privacy. You don't have to simulate things, they don't have to be like
But even if study after study had shown that was what we're doing. I think you still got much lucky than that with your overall packet of life.
Given that you already got like 4% the added feels like you're prioritizing them to
But like what I'm saying is like first has a much better life, and it's it's pure luck that he was born in America.
All
Nothing by the
all
work.
these debates like
And he let it.
like no one else.
He could have won. So like, if before their lives, you know, they could pick, let's just born in America or born in Bangalore, what would they have picked, you know? Like those refugees here, it's like, if you're so lucky, you just exchange your roles, you know, you become a refugee.
It's always if you can
That's what to be fair,
Alright, we're going to zip through this. We're going to do, for those of you we're going to do the semi-final round. And we're going to do just one front half. But for those of you that are not chosen to participate, we would like you to try to write an opening government or opening opposition and do the conceptual analysis for it, since we only have time for one. So the first one will be opening government will be James, and Austin will be your mentor, and Harsh will also be opening government, and Pratik will be your mentor, and Sam will be opening opposition, and Joe will be your mentor, and Chris will be opening opposition, and Aaron will be your mentor for Chris. Okay, you see Chris? Yeah. Okay.
Alright, and then for the semi-final round, we're going to make it real easy. I don't want to deal with this really super specific resolution, so we're just going to go with this house would ban elective abortion. Okay? That's simple. Huh? What time do you need to leave? What was the restriction? 45?
Why do you go?
We're going to do like 5 minutes.
Yeah, you can go first.
James,
I got paper.
Should I run with you?
How long?
What's the board?
I guess it's okay.
Are you PM or? I'm PM.
Is that in the portion?
You're going to find out. Yes.
Wait, what are we doing? We just need the first two to
We're doing a front half debate.
So like, what each of us are going to speak, right?
No, like.
Let's give you PML, PML.
Okay.
Wait.
PML,
and then PML.
Oh, really?
So we're going PM.
So it's like
wait, so
it's
debate, right?
Two structural analysis.
Very California. What?
Very California.
You're very California. Yes.
Professor.
Yeah.
Should he talk about his mother?
Yeah, his mother. Yeah. Listen to me. Yeah. I was wondering.
Yeah, I can.
So you have to.
Are you here on Monday?
Yeah, well, okay, that would be one of probably the strongest.
They're gonna happen anyway.
Firing somebody else.
Oh yeah, I wanted to talk to you.
But then like they, operate. So in a way, do you think? Or
Two leader.
I don't know, like.
Prime Minister leader, Prime Minister leader. So like it's okay if you're arguing with everyone laughs, but I mean try to come up with original reasons why you support or defend your
I don't scream for women around like so what's the mom can't support her
What do you do?
Like if there's even a chance that the child has a written down with half life, then a woman can, nobody should be able to hear it. I think what they
I don't love it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this is necessarily a huge difference, but I think it's, let's look at what the status quo is, right? Because like you're saying, don't change the status quo. The status quo is everything. They're going to try to say like that doesn't even happen.
Should that be should it be an argument that should be?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
I think that's
Yeah, I mean, maybe like if I want to, like for now, I kind of. Yeah, I like Facebook just already. I follow like the garden, so I can get like most daily updates. So I don't know. For like
I don't know.
There is that.
That is a forced
but they're like a second year. I swear I saw my brother. We have a mutual friend. It is involved. What's happening?
I don't know. It's gonna be okay, unless you guys want healthcare or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's the same kind of principle that you bring back here. So you should kind of like, be fair about it. I guess a good like,
they don't go to they can
I can say if everyone on the side the problem
so they're more like
and maybe but then like it's really interesting. If I tell you go, give all your money, you'll probably it's like a clear evolution between your desires to enjoy your own life.
I'm going to use
under what amendment of the Constitution is it?
Like I'm very like
oh, relative is non-internet resources, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Economically, very important.
That's not saying
one thing no one can cut. You don't have to.
Northwest, so like it's gonna put a test here, but Santiago. No worries, like no. Yeah. So Madrid, Barcelona, Catalonia, Portugal. Oh, I like it. It's like very different. It's like 300,000 people. So it's very small. And like no immigrants. People there barely keep track of like.
Who's your American?
Joe, he just went to his freshman, but we outlined our case. We got
those abroad.
I think the New York Times was
Hillary won.
Well, I think that was
yeah, when
I was 13.
Hillary is winning outright.
I went
not exactly, but every argument
because I wanted to speak. I love speaking, so I told my dad. Because I was like, Dad, I really want to speak. He's like, okay, but you have to learn English at the same time. So like a boarding school somewhere, like that. He was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. Send me there. And then I went to finish also,
screamed at it.
people are like from the UK. So I
That's great. Just have seen the
and then like I didn't know what I wanted to find for sure. And the UK like you have to like say like whatever you are applying for, so you say like you love it, you know, like you want to do all like so like yeah, that was right. And
because they're enforcing the ideal for children.
yeah.
How did you like
I also looked at Jason Berkeley. Yes, San Francisco is so poor.
They're going to make a certain argument to want to
I have a feeling it's going to be that. No,
I went to I kind of like the whole city. So like, because I was like, I came to visit, but I didn't just want to spend like a day in Berkeley and a day in Chile. So like I stayed for San Francisco for like 3 days. We weren't staying in like Berkeley, we were staying in San Francisco. And but I don't know, like I loved it so much. It's like I love this city. I'm like a very sweet person.
Alright, prep time is up. Don't everybody react to that. Ian? Shut up! Thank you. Thank you. Yep. I love you. Alright, so prep time is up. So, who wants to go first?
Oh, we're out of battery. Okay. Oh well. Okay. I guess.
Got it? You ready?
Okay.
No. That's perfect. That's the answer I want to hear. Let's do this.
You got this, James.
All right, everybody, welcome James to the stage. On the main stage.
I literally don't have any.
You got this. I have all the faith in the world in you.
Can I just defect right now?
No, but what you don't want to do is doing what you're doing now is apologizing. You want to be faking confidence.
I'm in presence of family and comrades.
Yeah.
Joking promotes our connection, bonding.
Pretend you're like Huckabee or Cruz.
Or Trump.
You have to like get like this.
Give me your best Trump impression. All right, so we got you for 5. Everybody, be prepared. 5-minute speeches.
Any POIs?
Yes, please.
Yeah, we'll do a couple POIs. Take like 1 or 2.
We'll do.
Don't get crazy with it. If you're in the audience and you're listening, you're not giving a speech. What I'd like to hear from you guys at the end of this is maybe some additional arguments that they didn't think of. So try to think of some arguments on either side that nobody raised. Try to something unique, original, something to throw the other team off their game. All right? Whenever you're ready, sir.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing me to speak to this very important issue of why this House would ban elective abortion. This is a very important issue, and I'm going to be going through 3 particular arguments of why this is important. One's going to be about personhood and how life begins at conception. The second point I'm going to be going into is personal responsibility and how this erodes that in people and in society. And then I'm going to talk about the unfair burden this places on women. First, I'm going to do a few definitions, though, just a couple real quick. Elective, I'm going to say, is any, it's not necessary for preserving the life of the mother. In other words, this abortion, there's no ill effect on the mother to carry this to term, the pregnancy to term. And abortion, of course, is the termination by any unnatural processes medically of any pregnancy at any time during the term. This House is the United States federal government for these purposes. All right, so first, I'm going to dive right into personhood begins at conception. And it's not just life begins at conception, it is personhood. This is a country, this is the United States, and we have a constitution, and people in this country have rights, and one of the rights is to life itself. And there's no reason that life is put at any point in the pregnancy. Life is something that you can't just define with a line, this is alive, this is not a person. Life is over a spectrum, and we believe here in this House that to err on the side of caution, that we want to protect all life. We can't just simply start drawing lines in between in conception and actually giving birth and saying, well, this is okay and this is not. That's not what we feel here. We feel go all the way back, everyone has rights, and this will be better for everyone overall. But you don't believe in the right to life.
So are you saying essentially that you're trying to ban abortion in general?
That's the topic, yes.
Not elective, so there is no other criteria, it's just abortion.
I already gave, I already gave some of my definition, yes. If anyone has a better question, I'll take that because that doesn't count. So that's our first point, is that personhood is a property of everyone in the country that needs to be protected. And that personhood begins at conception because there's no better place to define it without just being completely arbitrary. And that just gets into even more messier business. But I'm going to move on now to my point on responsibility and why abortion in general, when it's in the mother's life, is in danger. Elective abortion is what I'm talking about. It creates a society that it's the beginning of eroding a personal responsibility. The point here being is that apathy is when we care for each other, and if we have a society where we have this idea that we can just toss people aside, and again, these are persons in the womb, we can just toss them aside when they're inconvenient, this will filter down into other parts of our society. So if we start there, the responsibility is to each other, is what we're trying to promote here. We want to promote a better, healthier society, and when you have abortion in it, it chips away at that until we don't care about the people who are actually in front of us with names and faces and histories. If we begin here at conception, who knows where it will lead to in the end. Just like when you try to define the life in the womb, like this is okay and this is not, it'll come out further down the line as well. So that's why we need to make sure that abortion is not illegal, except in the terms when it puts the mother in danger, because this point also has to do with making a healthier society. So we would also allow for that when the mother's life is in danger, because that promotes a healthier society as well. You don't want to promote a healthier society.
So does your plan make the Plan B pill effectively murder?
Well, that is another good point. It does go right to that. That is a very easy syllogism that proves my case on the point that personhood begins at conception. If a person is in the womb, and that is a person, a murder is the killing of a person, then you must go directly to the conclusion that follows that it is murder and you must make it illegal. So that syllogism completely proves my point on the contingency that personhood does start at the beginning, which it must be, otherwise it's completely arbitrary. That's the only objective way we can look at this issue. Thirdly, I want to talk about the unfair burden it places on women. I'll do that really quickly. When an atmosphere of where abortion is just readily available for any reason you want, it creates a type of situation where men can just think they can just use women and just use them and leave them. There's no responsibility there. They'll go get an abortion. There's nothing to force them into actually taking responsibility for their actions. And so that promotes, again, an unhealthier society, which is another reason we need to get rid of abortion. So to sum up, this House believes that we should ban all elective abortions because personhood begins at conception, and it is our job as the United States to protect all people's rights. It will promote better responsibility between all citizens to each other without abortion, and also it places on women a burden that is undue to them, and it will also, again, erode more responsibility in men. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You want to...
Wait, Shane, are we going to take now or after vote?
After.
Okay.
Go to the next one. I don't want to give anybody tips on how to revise.
Oh, I see.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Alright, start. The Supreme Court ruled in 1973 in a landmark decision that women had the right to an abortion, and by extension a right to control their own bodies and a right over their reproductive rights under the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. And taking away the right to an abortion is not only an attack on a fundamental women's right and human right, it's an attack on our very Constitution. For the three following reasons: that 1, it is simply a woman's right to choose. Number 2, that abortions are going to happen anyway with potentially lethal consequences for the woman involved. And 3rd, that this would disproportionately impact low-income women and minority women are reasons that we should not ban elective abortions. For starters, I have some problems with the Prime Minister's definition of elective abortion. He said only in cases of life of the mother, and he brought up various things like personal responsibility. What about in the cases of rape? Specifically rape of a minor. What about in the cases of incest? Should abortions not be allowed in these circumstances if a woman is forcibly raped? No, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. She's being allowed to carry it to term no matter what. That's not an issue of personal responsibility. An issue of rape, I think it's a pretty odious definition to say that no, regardless, you have to be carried out this this baby to term even if there's no real consequence to it, so yes.
Yes. Now, first of all, you base your whole case on the constitutionality, but how do you contest the fact that in the 14th Amendment, it never enumerates the right to privacy, which was the justification behind Roe v. Wade. In addition to this, even Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has said it's unconstitutional. And when you talk about these cases of rape privacy, we agree it is tragic, and we agree that it's terrible, but these are simply not the majority of the cases, and you cannot use that as a representative case to make your rule.
When you say that cases of rape are not the majority, a majority of abortions in general are not in case for life for the mother. So using that same logic, your own point is invalid. Now, getting into the refutations of the main primary arguments, his first argument was that there was life at conception. And scientists have determined that fetuses are not viable up until a certain point, and that point is well above the 24 weeks established by our federal government. And many red states have an even earlier cutoff date. So to say that, oh, there's life at conception, why? Because we simply believe that. Well, the empirical evidence-gathering process known as the scientific method rejects that notion. The concept of personal responsibility I'm going to go after in my third argument. And to say it's an unfair burden on the woman, you said something along the lines of, oh, well, men can be more callous with women, men can use more women to satisfy their needs whenever they want. Again, you right there just described rape. So unless you can cite me some statistics or evidence or something saying there's been an increase in rape ever since 1973, since the introduction of Roe versus Wade, that entire vague point of an unfair burden on women is invalid. Going back into point number one now, this is simply a woman's right to choose. This is a right over, banning abortion, banning a woman's right to choose, banning a right over her body and her reproductive rights. This is a fundamental attack on women's rights. This is a fundamental attack on humans' rights, even just setting aside the constitutionality for a second. Nearly every other modern nation has right to an abortion in some capacity. You look at everywhere across Europe, across places in Asia, this is a fundamental right, and if we decided to outlaw this right and outlaw this fundamental choice that a woman can have and control over the body she has, this would make us an extreme outlier over all sorts of liberal Western democracies that have established this as a fundamental woman's right and value that we should adhere to. No, thank you. The second point is that these are going to happen anyway with potentially lethal consequences. I'll have to make this brief, but we've seen this in places like West Texas, for instance. There's been a massive increase in very sort of dangerous abortions. Women are, if they can't have a baby for whatever the reason, it's been 4 minutes.
No, it has.
Yeah, no, if women decide that they can't have this baby for whatever the reason, be it economic, be it for their health or whatever, these abortions are going to happen anyway, and there are potentially lethal consequences. So taking away this right only endangers women. And transitioning into my third point, this disproportionately impacts low-income women and minority women. Simply, rich women will find a way to get an abortion. They can go to Canada, they can go to Europe, and they can make it happen. But furthermore, rates of sex education are much higher in high-income areas, same with access to birth control. So it is simply not a woman's fault that she does not have the same resources, the same opportunity, the same knowledge that wealthier women have in rights to an abortion. When you say it's personal responsibility, that's simply not the case. This is simply a lack of access to opportunity and to knowledge. So for the following reasons, that is a woman's right to choose, they're going to happen anyway, the consequences are potentially lethal, and this disproportionately impacts low-income women. For all these reasons, among many more, we need to protect the fundamental women's right that is abortion. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Who wants to start? Shane, you want to go? Or?
Yeah, I'll start. That's fine.
Okay.
All right, so let's start with James on OG here. Like your definitions, I thought that was pretty good. I think you could have maybe spent a little less time on the definition of abortion, or if you're going to define abortion, make it a little bit more of a broad definition, especially when you have things like Plan B, that kind of thing. Like, if you want to get into that ground, make sure you really define it well. Great taglines, and you followed them really well. I enjoyed that. I know sometimes you struggle with that. That was really good. Your second point, I don't think you even really knew where you were going on the second point that great. And that kind of shines through a little bit. I liked where you were going with the idea of apathy and how that filters down through society. But I think you could maybe word that or structure that a little bit better. I don't know, maybe do you have any advice on that one? Because I think that was probably the biggest problem.
Yeah, I think it also could have impacted that one. But like, the impact I kind of got was like this less respect for life and people. If that's what the impact you wanted to end at,
Is that what you're going for?
Yeah.
Okay. But then okay, then never mind. Then good.
Yeah, I mean, I just think we need, I think maybe, the impact's fine, but we need to find some more tangible example of it, or something that I can really rest my head on and go, oh, okay, that's what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Instead of this amorphous idea of lack of respect.
Well, I feel like, yeah, I mean, just on that one, I felt like the way that you took in the apathy point, which I thought was going a little bit differently, to be honest, I thought that it kind of made it an impact point one, if anything. I thought it kind of made it an impact of the point one rather than its own point, where it's saying that because it's personhood, that we're getting the, that then you're going to have the apathy develop in society rather than its own standalone point.
Well, it leads into it. That's why I did it as number 2.
I don't know, because I didn't really.
I don't know if I buy that, because, and let me tell you why. Is that if you're trying to tie personal responsibility into the whole personhood argument, then why does a woman have a responsibility to that life? Why does the woman have to give up 9 months of her bodily autonomy to take care of it? You say you can open yourself up to that kind of side flank attack, and really can destroy 2 points at the same time.
But doesn't this one? But the whole apathy point is based on the first one.
The apathy point, yes. Maybe maybe
So
there's a
already
disconnect between the tagline and the apathy argument.
Yeah, I thought the apathy argument was going a little bit differently, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can see where you're going with that. I think that makes sense. I think that's a fair point.
I thought it was like apathy to like what the concept of life means. Like that's what I was
I was thinking more of like just lack of responsibility in general.
Yeah.
Ian, any other additional comments for James?
I mean, like, I might be the odd man out here. I'm not really a big fan of sheerly philosophical or intangible impacts. I always like tangible impacts. I get that there's a philosophical, thing to this, but at the same time, tell me why.